It's an unlikely starting point on an issue which still divides America. The Midwest state of South Dakota is where many pieces of anti-abortion legislation are conceived. From here, they're often picked up and adapted by other states. South Dakota has, per head of population, one of the lowest abortion rates in the country. But the politicians, when they come to the state capital here in Pierre, have introduced 18 anti-abortion measures in the past 7 years. 14 have become law. That's one of the highest rates in the country.
Women to control her own body.
It's almost 40 years since the US Supreme Court ruled on the legality of abortion, the landmark Roe versus Wade case. But it's a fight that's still being fought. Republican Roger Hunt has written key pieces of anti-abortion legislation in South Dakota and is happy they've become the template for elsewhere.
I can remember several years ago when we passed the parental consent legislation. When we passed that type of legislation and some other type of legislation, I know there are a lot of other states. I must have had 7, 8 states, legislators in those states call me and say, what did you do? How did you do it? What should our position be?
South Dakota's legislature meets for 30 days each year. It considers hundreds of bills, but only once in 10 years has there been no anti-abortion legislation introduced. And until recently, the laws here were considered the most restrictive in the country. One pro-choice group says this has been the testing ground.
We see things introduced here in South Dakota often first, and then it travels out into the rest of the country. So we're constantly on the front lines of new innovative ways to restrict access to reproductive health care, and we're constantly trying to figure out how to combat those at the legislature.
South Dakota has been the centre of some of the most bitter fights on the abortion issue. Almost every piece of legislation has been challenged in court. And the signs are, on this most sensitive of issues, this will continue to be a key battleground. Alan Fisher, Al Jazeera, Pierre, South Dakota.